Hello and welcome to this webinar demonstration of P2 Workflow. My name is David Grisanti and I'm a solutions consultant with P2 Energy Solutions. I'll be stepping you through the P2 Workflow solution today. We'll talk about some challenges that our customers see and how this tool can really help solve those challenges. Here you see an image of a baton handoff. An ownership update can be likened to a series of baton handoffs. You don't want to drop the baton, but there's quite a few opportunities for that to happen. Ownership updates can turn into a very time-consuming process that a company deals with every month. Often, there's little time to communicate the changes to all the parties that need to know, and the miscommunication, like a dropped baton, can lead to lost time in performing tasks like prior period adjustments, adding hours each month to revenue processing. These extra hours can include an increase in owner calls, an increase in the amount of time it takes to process suspended monies, or the need to perform reversals and rebooks to put the appropriate production on correct decks. No matter what department manages your ownership changes today, P2 Workflow is going to help them get through the process more efficiently and more effectively. It's going to save you time each month. So let's see how P2 Workflow can help streamline this process for you. Here's the workflow we're going to talk about. You can see the swim lanes. They're going to identify the different people, the different roles that have certain tasks to perform within this workflow. In the case of notification tasks, they're going to focus on certain departments. So certain people receive notifications when they need to. The flow really depends on the ownership change itself and exactly what you need the system to do. It's very configurable. I'll just call out a few benefits here before we get into the application itself. First, notifications. The system can send automatic emails to each department, revenue, land, JIB, at the start of the ownership change, so they can begin to update their records. Second, proactive time savings. With every department being notified up front, they're going to have the time to make changes that they need within their department, instead of being notified after the fact. So that's going to save them hours each month with prior period adjustments. And then the auditability. The document management of the workflow will allow users to find all associated paperwork in almost no time at all, whether it's needed for an auditor or a month-end process. So I've logged into P2 Workflow, and the first screen that we're looking at here within P2 Workflow is related to all of the cases that I can create, the cases that are already in my inbox, the cases that I've participated in, or the cases that I could grab from the unassigned pool and start working on myself. So one thing to note about P2 Workflow is it's not just a solution for ownership change approval. This tool can be used across all your different departments to help solve workflow challenges that you have right now. So we're going to take a look at one workflow, but you could build tens and hundreds of different workflows with this application, or you could modify the workflows that we deliver out of the box to our customers, because that's a big part of this application and a big part of this solution is that we deliver out of the box workflows for our customers to take, modify, and put to use for themselves. So let's kick off the ownership change workflow. You can see from my new cases here, I'm able to go ahead and start that ownership change workflow, and I'm greeted with the DINA form. These forms are fully configurable by you, so you can make sure and include all the necessary information that you want captured within this workflow to a form like this. Now I'm going to select what decks are being affected by this ownership change. Is it a revenue deck, a JIB deck, both? Could it be a land deck? I'm able to select that information, and that's going to ensure that the relevant parties are notified and that the relevant accountants are tasked with updating those decks. I'm also going to be able to select what company this is associated with and what owner this is associated with. When I do that, you can see I begin typing and the system offers me a pick list of relevant information. This is showing you that the workflow tool is actually connected to your accounting database. So you're pulling relevant information out of your accounting database. There's no need for redundant data entry within this application. It's going to be able to work in tandem with your accounting solution. And you can see as I populate information like the old owner name, their address also populates automatically. So that's just a function of querying that information in the database. As I enter my new owner information within the system here, I can also upload any sort of supporting documentation that I might need, like a source document including maybe a lease or a deed or something like that that supports this change that's occurring. One or multiple files can be uploaded and associated with any sort of workflow case. So that's going to be very handy down the road when we take a look at the auditability and the document management of the tool. Now I'll just toggle over to our process map and we'll take a look at that so we can really visualize exactly where we are within this workflow. And in this case, we just started it. The task in progress is the one outlined in red here at the beginning, but we can see where this workflow is going to go from here. So we'll be sending out some automatic email notifications to some supervisors, revenue and JIB, because those are the two departments affected by this change, and then an email to our approver, who's actually going to go in the system and approve that change. After that change is approved, we'll be notifying the accountants to make changes to their decks and upload their supporting documentation that proves that change was completed. And then we'll package all that up and export it to a shared drive. So now we'll hop out of our process map and we'll submit that form that we populated with the relevant information. And once we submit that form, we can see the next steps of the workflow. It's going to be automatic emails to revenue and JIB, the two departments that we said were affected by this change. So those are the two supervisors who are going to get automatic email notification. Once we continue from that, we'll see that our automatic emails flow through to those supervisors. So here are what those automatic emails look like, those populated in my inbox in real time. We can see the relevant information from the DINA form. We can see the attached document that was submitted with that form. And there's also going to be a third email that goes to that ownership change approver. So we got the two emails for revenue and JIB, and then the third one for the ownership change approver to come in and approve that action. So that ownership change approver is just going to come into the application, grab it in this case from the unassigned pool. But I will note that there's many different ways to assign these workflows to different people. So the unassigned pool is one way that I'm using it, saying that anybody within a team can pick up this particular case and work on it. But you could have workflows that assign automatically to someone's manager or assign automatically to a certain person within a certain department, or you can have a cyclical assignment, so each person receives an assignment in order, or potentially the person with the fewest cases receives the next assignment. So there's many ways to schedule your cases to be assigned to different users.
The important thing to remember here is that each user who needs it is going to receive an automatic email notification when it's their turn to act on a case and perform a certain task. So in some instances, they might receive an email notification and be able to perform an action right through that email. And other times, those notifications will come through and they'll see that they need to log in and take action. No matter how that's happening, those users are going to receive those notifications automatically and always know what things they need to act on and when. Now, as the ownership change approver, I'll claim this case and I'll open it up. I can take a look at my process map to understand what's been completed, what's still pending, and what I'm doing right now, if I need a reference for that. And I can see that in green and red, exactly what actions have been taken and where I sit right now. So I'm going to approve this change. I see the change that's been created. I see the supporting documentation associated with that change. But as the approver, I cannot actually edit any of this. All I can do is either approve or reject it. If I reject it, it'll go back to the creator. If I approve it, it'll move forward within the workflow. So I'll go ahead and add a comment and approve this change. And here we can see an example of some of that proactive time savings. An approver doesn't need to know how the information got into the system. They just need to know what they need to know. They need to be able to approve of the change or reject it back to the person who entered it. Someone who's entering information, obviously you're going to give them the ability to modify information on form and things like that. But an approver, they only need to know their one aspect of the case and what they need to do with it. Once our approval has been completed and then documented by P2 workflow, the case is going to pass on to our accountants. So our revenue or JIB accountants whichever department is being affected by this change. So those accountants are themselves going to get automatic email notifications. They're going to be able to claim that case or have it directly assigned to them, as we talked about the different types of assignment rules earlier. And then they're going to be able to upload reports that prove that they made the modifications within their department to enact that new ownership update. Here I'm going to take on the persona of one of those accountants who has a change that needs to be made in the accounting system of record. So I'll hop into my unassigned pool. I'll claim the case associated with that change. I'll then update the case to say that I have made the change in the system of record. Here are the associated reports proving that that change has been made. Capture these reports, save them along with the workflow so that any auditor can come and see these. And then send this workflow on to the next task within the case. In the next task that we've just stepped into, we're going to see how this application can interact with other systems of record. So in this case, our P2 reporting solution, based on the information that we've submitted within this workflow, we have an owner change, it's related to a specific deck within the accounting system. Go into P2 reporting and create a report showing our NADOA formatted division order report related to that deck. So now we see that report has been called. It's actually now attached to the case. So any user who takes a look at that case can open up the report from our reporting tool that's associated with that case and associated with that specific division of interest. And now we can see in the process map of this case where we sit. So basically all of the actions that users need to perform have been completed, and we've created that output document that includes our P2 reporting division order report. Now we can take a look at our audit document showing who approved a change, when they did it, who enacted the changes in the accounting system with the reports that they uploaded to their tasks within the case proving that they made those changes, and then export all of that information to a shared drive so that it's available for anyone internally or any auditor externally to view all the changes that were made and the supporting documentation associated with them. The real key benefit to highlight within this portion of the workflow is that auditability. So a document was created showing who did what and when. That document's associated with the division order report created out of P2 reporting, associated with the source documentation that was uploaded, associated with the reports that were uploaded as proof that the change was made within the accounting system. All those things are saved together in a folder. So every time this workflow runs, a new folder is created with those documents stored in it. And anybody internally or externally that's given access can then go take a look at that folder, take a look at the changes that were made associated with that workflow and the supporting documentation for that if they're doing any sort of audit on those changes. That information is never going to get lost. That information is always going to be available. You're going to see the completed workflow and the documentation associated with it. It's important to point out that with P2 workflow, you don't just get a solution that helps streamline your ownership changes. This tool can be used across your entire business to, as we saw today, streamline business processes, help ensure proper documentation is associated with business processes that are completed, help ensure that the proper approvals have been taken care of and completed when a change is enacted in a system of record, things like that. And the ownership change workflow that we just detailed is one of many solutions that we offer as content when you license P2 workflow. So here you can see all the different workflows that this particular user has access to when they're creating new cases. If this user is given designer rights, then they can build workflows as well. So you can see all the different workflows that they might be working on creating or modifying. And this workflow tool can connect to your systems of record. So whether those are SQL databases or Oracle databases or Excel files, any sort of systems of record that you have, P2 workflow has got the ability to connect to that, bring that information into a workflow, and then send that information through the workflow to the parties that need to touch that workflow. We'll just drill into a workflow here and take a look at a quick example. Within our well down workflow, you can see I've created swim lanes for what the system is doing, what our land analyst, land supervisor, and drilling engineer are doing. But this is not a static workflow that can't be changed. You see, I'm able to rearrange the tasks within this workflow. I'm able to add a task where I need to. maybe an extra review, and then reroute the workflow based on that new task. So this tool is very dynamic, very user-friendly. An end user can build workflows. A BA type of user can really dig into the workflows and make connections to databases and things like that. And if we're just to take a look at the form related to a workflow, here we'll jump into the steps, edit a form associated with that workflow, and now we can see what an end user is going to see. So if we preview that form, we can see the type of information that an end user would see on their computer, on their tablet, or on a mobile device. And this is also editable by an end user in a very easy and efficient manner. Just drag and drop to add a new text area. Select your variable, and away you go. With a preview, we can see our new text area associated with that form for users to populate when they're completing that step in the case. Thank you for joining our webinar demonstration of P2 Workflow today. Just to reiterate a few of the benefits you saw within this demonstration. You saw the automatic notifications. Users got automatic emails letting them know that they had a case that they needed to act on and a task that they needed to perform. You saw proactive time savings. When a user got into the application, they were greeted with the exact thing that they needed to do. So they didn't necessarily have to understand the whole workflow, just their piece of it. And then you saw the auditability at the end of the workflow, packaging all of the supporting documentation associated with that workflow, storing it in a folder on the file repository so that an auditor, internal or external, could come take a look at that and see the associated documentation with the changes. Please contact P2 if you'd like a demonstration of P2 Workflow. We'd be happy to show you how this tool can benefit your company.